My girlfriend Kathy's video of kissing some D-list celebrity in the car went viral. Reporters asked how I felt about it. I just smiled politely and said with indifference, "Congratulations to them for finding love. After all, a tainted stand-in is not worth keeping." Just finished my scenes, and my agent Mary walked over all uneasy. She seemed kind of suspicious, like she was testing the waters. "Charles, did you and Kathy have a fight or something?" I continued removing my makeup, feeling nothing inside, probably just another breached contract. My tone stayed calm, couldn't tell if I was mad or sad. Mary checked me out a few times before finally bringing up Z magazine's cover. I fought hard for that cover, getting turned away countless times, losing its stings a bit, but I've grown used to this happening lately. The culprit being my contract girlfriend, Kathy, famous for looking down on connections. She never tried to get me resources, even after 5 years together. Yet, recently, she was using her connections to give my opportunities to some D-lister. I was curious who could grab her attention until I saw her at an event, arm in arm with a celeb calling him Larry. Then I guessed it, her childhood friend and first love, Larry. I put down the makeup, stood, and patted Mary on the shoulder. "No worries, gives me less work, rare to get some rest." Seeing my nonchalance, Mary frowned, not hiding her disapproval. "When there's a conflict, explain it. You guys were doing so well, Charles. Learn to give in a little. Want to know what resources are possible if Kathy helps out. Plan for your future." Mary kept pestering me while I nonchalantly scrolled through videos on my phone. She didn't get that part of why Kathy didn't share resources was because I refused them. Originally, being with Kathy wasn't for her power, but for her. More precisely, her face, which Kathy didn't know. I was scrolling through trending topics when a video popped up with a breaking tag. Clicked in, my heart skipped a beat for a moment. Inside a dim car, a couple's passionately making out. Though the video's blurry and you only see the side, I recognized them easily. Every night, I studied that face, tracing it with my fingers. Mary caught the video on my phone too, and her voice halted. "Maybe call Kathy. See if it was a misunderstanding?" Mary's suggestion was timid, lacking confidence. I simply said, "No need," then opened my page. Tons of fans in the comments, comforting me. "Is there a misunderstanding with Kathy? Don't be sad. Breakups lead to someone better. Larry looks a bit like you." Kathy often accompanied me to various events, never hiding our status in public. People knew about us. I selectively replied to a few before logging off. Opened contact information, went to Kathy's chat. Short history between us. Relieved that I only ever desired her face. Nothing more, not even love. Otherwise might have suffered heartbreak again. Typed and revised for a while before sending a message. "You broke the contract." Mary and I sat in the van. Awkward silence hanging heavy. Closed my eyes, recalling the first time I saw Kathy. A newbie, lost in the background at a gala. Kathy, the CEO, delivered a speech. One look and I was captivated. Her face was nearly 80% like my first love, Clara. For a moment thought they were the same, but logic told me otherwise. Kathy was strong and capable, while Clara was cute and quirky, polar opposites. Yet I fixated on that face. I started scheming, investigated Kathy, learned about her unreciprocated love from youth. Seeing a photo, I knew it was my chance. At a wrap party, slightly tipsy, entered Kathy's room. Her anger vanished seeing me, her touch lingering tenderly on my face. I knew then I'd succeeded. Sure enough, the next day Kathy threw a file my way, her tone cold, eyes oppressive. "Whatever your game, stay by me. I can get you resources. But don't ask for more." Didn't back down, rejected her unequal terms. Wanted nothing, just to be near her. Proposed a peculiar demand. No intimate interactions with others. Just didn't sit right with me. Kathy appeared surprised. Didn't expect such a request. Yet she agreed without concern. One night was all it took for her to know my details. An orphan, a rookie. Non-threatening. Kathy's busy at first, rarely saw her. So put in extra effort. Picked her up, cooked, eventually suggested living together. Took 3 months. Took care of her meticulously. Even her secretary remarked on how fond I seemed of her. I acted like I loved her, but deep down I knew I didn't. Everything I did was just to see her face up close, pretending Clara was still with me. I wove a dream for myself, but now it's time to wake up. A new message popped up on my phone. It was from Kathy. Wait for me tonight. I didn't reply. I just took Mary home and headed back to my small apartment. As soon as I stepped out of the car, a horde of reporters surrounded me. Microphones and cameras were pointed at me, trapping me. I tried moving my feet, but I couldn't. I've been with Kathy for 3 years. Although I didn't use her connections, I climbed to the top of the acting world through my own hard work. Now this big scandal is out, and of course, the media won't let me go easily. What's your take on Kathy and Larry kissing in the car? Kathy's heartfelt post confessing her love for Larry. What's your reaction? You look about 80% like Larry. Did you know you're a stand-in? The questions kept coming, not giving me a chance to breathe. I kept my cool, a faint smile playing on my lips. Congratulations to them for finding love. There was a moment of silence. They didn't expect that answer from me. As the victim, my normal reaction should have been to condemn them publicly and gain sympathy. At the very least, a man wearing a cuckold should be angry. But I don't love Kathy. There's no emotion for someone you don't love. The reporters didn't seem to buy it and asked again. I gave the same answer. Are you just pretending to be nonchalant? They asked again, but I didn't feel like replying. After filming all day, exhaustion was taking over. I tried to squeeze through the crowd, but they wouldn't let me go. Some even started getting physical. During the scuffle, a photo slipped out of my chest pocket. My expression froze, showing a hint of nervousness. I quickly bent down to retrieve it. Move, let me through. The reporters swarmed around me like flies to honey. Some eagle-eyed ones began snapping pictures of the photo on the ground. The photo showed a pair of high school students, smiling at each other. I couldn't pick it up without getting more frustrated. In anger, I shoved the reporters aside. Back off, you're harassing me. I can sue you. Known for my steady demeanor in the industry, this was my first public outburst. Some reporters got scared and backed away. Carefully, I picked up the photo, stepped on the ground, and wiped it clean with my sleeve. I looked up, eyes red, staring at the reporters in front of me. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. This threat worked, and with security guards from the complex showing up, I finally escaped. Back in my apartment, I slumped onto the floor, checking the photo repeatedly for damage. It was the last photo Clara left me, my last remnant of her. I sat there, not knowing when I fell asleep. In my dream, Clara appeared, smiling, asking me, did the big star become my leading man? But before I could answer, her image faded away. The doorbell jolted me awake. I checked my phone. It was midnight. Who could be here at this hour? I stood up, tidied my clothes, and carefully placed the photo back in my chest pocket. Opening the door, I saw Kathy and her assistant. The assistant looked exhausted, her face flushed, legs trembling. She glanced at me apologetically. Sorry for bothering you now, Felix. Kathy got drunk and insisted on seeing you. You weren't at the hotel, so I brought her here. Before she finished, Kathy leaned into my arms, nuzzling against me. I thanked the assistant and asked her to be careful on the way back. She hesitated before looking at me determinedly. We all see how kind you are to Kathy. She probably knows too. She kept calling your name while she was drunk. I didn't respond and closed the door. Once inside, Kathy flopped onto the sofa, kicking off her shoes like a cranky kid. She mumbled, "Don't be mad. I just kissed him." I looked at her seriously. That's not okay. You've breached our contract, so it's void. Kathy shook her head stubbornly, pouting. Don't be so petty, loosen up a little. I stayed silent, noticing the red mark on her neck, a blatant sign of someone marking their territory. I left her lying there and thought for a long time before heading to the kitchen to make some hangover soup. She'd have a headache tomorrow from the drinking. Clara always complained about headaches after late nights writing, asking me to comfort her. With Kathy bearing the same face, she'd surely soften me up with complaints tomorrow. I might as well deal with it all at once. I gave Kathy the soup, then moved her to the bed. After all that, I sat quietly staring blankly at her sleeping face. I stayed like that until dawn. When Kathy woke up, her eyes brightened seeing me. She tried to hold my hand, but I pulled away. I finally said it, our contract is void. Kathy's expression froze with disbelief. For a moment, she seemed to accept the truth, unsure. She asked, "Why are you mad? Because I kissed him or because I gave him your opportunities?" I can explain it was a mistake made in the heat of the moment. As for those opportunities, I can find you better ones. He's just returned to the country and needs development. You, being who you are now, don't need to push yourself so hard. Seeing me unmoved, Kathy grew anxious. I like you. I'm used to having you around. You don't know. Larry was my savior when I was a kid. When Kathy said this, her eyes were full of hope, like she needed me to understand. But I already knew. I knew Larry saved her from drowning when they were kids, and I knew it was Kathy's dad who split them up. Whether she's repaying a debt or still holding a torch, what's it got to do with me? I gave her a cold stare, and after a long pause, finally spoke. You're dirty. Kathy didn't see that coming. She just sat there on the bed, stunned. She couldn't believe someone who usually listened to her would react like this, especially after she offered compensation. For a moment, her pride felt challenged. It was rare for her to want to explain, but all she got was this cold attitude in return. I didn't say anything else and started walking to the door. Before I stepped out, Kathy stopped me. Heard you're aiming for the lead in that new series. Didn't you know I'm its biggest investor? Suddenly, I felt frozen. This series was Clara's debut project, mostly based on us. The novel blew up just when her dad got really sick. She had to sell the rights. She was so reluctant and even promised she'd write another one just for me to star in. But before she could write her next book, she passed away from stomach cancer. One big reason I joined the entertainment industry was to be in this project. To keep my promise to Clara. But 3 years in, there was no news about filming starting. I felt a bit relieved. Given my status, landing the lead role seemed tough. Then, when it finally got greenlit recently, I felt a weight lift. Being a big director, big production, and having a strong fan base, it attracted a lot of attention. Seeing me pause, Kathy's expression softened a bit. Continue our contract and I'll give you the lead role, she insisted. I knew I didn't really have a choice. After a tense half-minute, I nodded. Hope you'll keep your promise. Kathy got off the bed, happy, and hugged me. This time, I didn't dodge. In the days that followed, things felt normal between Kathy and me. She would drop by every day, nagging me to cook for her. Her PR managed to calm down the drama with Larry, though Larry's career was still strong, snagging big magazine covers and lead roles. I knew Kathy was behind that too, but I never mentioned it. I just wanted Clara's film shot right so I could step away from the limelight. Kathy was never my choice to begin with. Too bad. I wasn't looking for trouble, but trouble found me. Filming a commercial, I bumped into Larry. He saw me, smiled fake friendly, eyes full of disdain. Feigning surprise, he looked me over and stood next to me. They say Kathy looks like me, and now I see why. A while back, Kathy publicly declared her feelings for Larry, recounting their story, cleared his reputation a bit. But it also made folks notice how much I look like Larry and call me his stand-in. Now, Larry brought it up, probably hoping to rile me up. Too bad for him, he picked the wrong target. I gave a polite smile, brushed his hand off my shoulder. Looks our chance. But matching personalities would be better. As a senior, you should work on your acting. Larry's face froze at my words. Not surprising for a newbie who can't even control his expressions. His recent drama attracted people for his looks, but those who watched found it painful. His over-the-top expressions earned universal mockery. Some even compared us, saying he had the face of an Oscar winner but the acting of a turd. Larry once called Kathy over this, and I overheard. Kathy paid big for fake fans to hype him up, ending the issue. I didn't bother with Larry's reaction, just followed the crew to change. Half an hour later, I changed back into my own clothes, and instantly, my face clouded over. The photo from my chest pocket was gone. I frantically searched everywhere, worried I missed something, but came up empty. Then I heard footsteps at the door. Larry walked in with a photo, a sneer in his eyes. Looking for this? You think doctoring a photo of you and Kathy as kids lets you replace me? Between you and me, Kathy loves me. You're just a leech who won't let go. Larry toyed with the photo, and I felt my heart race. I glared at him. Give it back. Larry smiled, but his eyes were dark. Sure, kneel and beg, and I'll return it. I clenched and unclenched my fist, veins bulging as I fought anger. Taking a deep breath, I slowly said, fine. Stunned I agreed. Larry paused, then burst out laughing. While he mocked me, I knelt without hesitation. Nothing was more important than that photo. Pleased, Larry curled his lips, kicking my shoulder. Sure, I made you kneel, but did you really think I'd give it back? We have lots of pictures like this. How about I give you one? Before I could react, Larry tore the photo and tossed it at me. Watching the pieces drift down, my heart ached terribly. I felt a metallic taste rising in my throat but managed to swallow it down. My hands were shaking uncontrollably from fear and nerves as I carefully collected each piece. Took such a long time to gather all the fragments. Seeing Larry's smug face, I couldn't hold it in anymore and punched him right in the face. Larry didn't even dodge. He took the hit straight on. The next second, Kathy's voice came from outside the door. What are you doing? Kathy ran to Larry, gently touching his face with concern. Larry acted all pitiful, lowering his head. I accidentally broke a senior's photo. I deserved to be hit. Kathy was confused for a second. Photo? What photo? The one that's gone viral online, the fake one, Larry explained. Kathy's face changed. She glanced at me. It's just a silly photo. You hit someone over that? Apologize to Larry right now. Kathy stared me down, ordering me. That's not just a stupid photo. It's really important to me and I won't apologize, I countered. Even though I never loved Kathy, we've been together for a while. For a moment, I wished she'd side with me instead of just believing Larry. Kathy frowned as I didn't comply. We can take more photos in the future, but today you must apologize, she said. I hung my head, not saying a word at first, then whispered, it's unrecoverable. With that, I turned and left. Focused on seeing if the photo could be repaired. I went to 5 or 6 photoshops, and when they couldn't help, I decided to glue it myself. The pieces were so tiny, and I locked myself in my room carefully piecing them together, terrified of messing up. During that time, I got a text from Kathy. She said, you didn't listen, so now I have to punish you. But I couldn't care less what she planned to do. After 3 solid hours of piecing, looking at the complex web of cracks, my heart felt like it was tearing apart. That's when Mary called. Larry was announced as the lead actor in the drama series. I suddenly realized what Kathy's words meant. I asked Mary to pick me up. I needed to make a last-ditch effort to get there. When I finally made it to the ceremony, a crowd of bodyguards surrounded me as soon as I got out of the car. I knew them. They were Kathy's private security. Kathy doesn't want to see you here. So we're here to wait for you, they said, ignoring my struggles. They took me to the car and locked me there. So all I could do was stare at the ceremony through my phone. Kathy took the mic as the biggest investor, expressing trust in Larry's talent. A reporter couldn't resist and asked, "Wasn't Charles rumored to be the lead initially? Why the sudden change?" Kathy casually laughed, her eyes showing a hint of malice. "As the main investor, do I not have a say in who's best for the role?" Her gaze seemed to pierce through the screen, like she was speaking directly to me. I couldn't argue with her. It was the price for not following her orders. I sat there in defeat, feeling utterly empty inside. I had broken my promise to Clara, and the tears wouldn't stop. Right then, my phone rang. A familiar female voice said, "7 years. And you're still the same, let me help you." 7 years. Yes, it's been 7 years since Clara left me. I figured out who it was on the other side, and a sense of calm washed over me. The door opened and Mary ran in, looking a little shaken. Some hater threw acid at Larry, and he pushed Kathy into it. "Seems like half of her face won't be saved," she reported. Hearing this, I felt a twinge of pity. Such a beautiful face lost just like that. Of course, I felt relieved too. I simply acknowledged with a muted signaling I understood. Mary glanced at me sympathetically. "Kathy really wasn't right for you after all," she sighed. Instead of heading back to the apartment, I went to the agreed location. When I arrived, there was already a woman in business attire sitting in the private room. It was Lucy, Clara's best friend. After she took over her family's business, she'd been working overseas and only recently returned to the country. Without much preamble, she handed me a contract. I bought back the rights. "Consider it fulfilling Clara's old wish," Lucy said after a pause, fixing her gaze on me. "It's been 7 years. You should let it go. Clara wouldn't want you to live like this. No matter how much Kathy resembles Clara, she's not her. Can you still tell the difference?" I took the contract and bowed deeply to her. Looking into her eyes, I firmly said, "I've only ever loved Clara. She's irreplaceable in my heart." During our dinner, Lucy and I chatted casually. Before leaving, she patted my shoulder. "If you need help, come find me. I can still help you," she offered. Not long after Lucy left, Kathy's bodyguard stopped me. "Kathy wants to see you." They took me directly to the hospital, and this time I went along without resistance. There were things we needed to clear up. I wasn't the only one suffering. Following the guards into the room, I saw Kathy's face covered in scars. And inside I felt nothing. I found a spot far from her and sat down. Kathy looked at me, her eyes red as if she'd suffered a great injustice. "Charles, I was wrong. Larry actually used me as a shield against the acid." "No one compares to you," Kathy said, hitting the bed for emphasis. I stayed silent as she rambled on. "You always treated me right. I'm gonna blacklist him now. I never really intended to steal your lead role. I just wanted to scare you, make you obedient again. If you don't like it, I can find you a better show. Okay. Just don't be upset. Let's get along in the future." I looked at her calmly, watching her try to explain herself, but without that face, I felt no sympathy. I told her, "We won't have a future anymore." Kathy got anxious, and then seemed to realize something. "Is it because of the photo?" "It's fine, we can take another one and have the photographer edit it. It'll be okay." I was tired of going back and forth with her, so I told her word by word, "The person in the picture isn't you. She's my first love, Clara. If you didn't look like her, I wouldn't have approached you in the first place. Larry used the photo to make me kneel and ripped my picture. You believed everything she said and made me apologize. Stealing my lead role. What makes you think we'd have a future?" My words left Kathy frozen in place, unable to believe what she heard. After a while, she held her head in denial. She fell off the bed, trying to get closer, but had no strength. "No way, Charles, you're lying to me, right?" She looked at me with so much hope in her eyes, wanting confirmation to keep this dream alive. But I wouldn't give it. I picked her up and put her back on the bed. Continuing with the harsh truth. You lacked parental love growing up, so you fell for Larry, who saved you. Later, your dad forced Larry away, and he became your obsession. My face and kindness filled that void. When Larry came back, you couldn't let go of either. You wanted both. In the end, you lost everything. I walked out of the hospital room without caring about her reaction. Whatever happened next had nothing to do with me. I went back to planning the cast and shooting the drama. It was my promise fulfilled to Clara. Kathy did manage to shut down Larry, but she started clinging to me, visiting the set, bringing me tea, even though I was never nice to her. She believed she could win me back. In the end, I had to ask Lucy for help. Lucy pretended to be my girlfriend, which crushed Kathy's self-esteem. She even brought in an illegitimate daughter to go against Kathy. After that, Kathy never showed up again. The drama's shooting went smoothly. At the wrap party, I thanked everyone and announced my retirement. I'd fulfilled my promise, and now I wanted to explore the world. I later heard about Kathy. She had mental health issues and had to recuperate. The illegitimate daughter took over the company. But none of this concerned me. At the time, I was traveling the world with that photo in hand.